You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset
I was
with
thinking of
Monfre and
switching
Bill
my
Lowell.
nameplate
We want to
instead
help
of
demystify
Bill
marketing
Lowell.
to reduce risk, drive more
Bill's
and
board.
partner opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?
All right. That's all right. Whatever you were saying, it was going out over the air somehow. So I hope
Really?
it was nice. Anyway, welcome to B2B Marketing Mindset. We help small businesses get bigger because bigger is better, especially here in Texas. I'm Pete Monfre, and today we're talking about one of the most boring topics ever, money. So specifically, what's the best way to determine the least amount of money needed to meet your objective? So I'm going to repeat that. What's the best way to determine the least amount of money needed to meet your objectives? So we're going to share the 5 most common ways companies create budgets, and then we're going to show you the way that actually works. And with me to help sort it out is Bill Lowell, marketing professor, owner of Business Development Directives, a marketing research firm located behind the Cheddar Curtain in Wisconsin. And I feel like this subject, I think this subject is interesting. Bill thinks it's super boring. So keep watching and you be the judge. So,
Well, no,
how do you
it's just
set the
that
marketing budget? Oh, God.
well, it's just that I think that marketing, PR, and advertising people will, a lot of them will find it boring because they're mostly creative people. So it's kind of interesting, but we'll make
Yeah,
it exciting,
it's funny because we're generally considered a creative type of business, but we're all about the math. But you sent these 6 different ways, and
hmm
I have an opinion. I think that 5 of them are what I call fancy guessing,
Yeah.
or all hat and no cattle, like we like to
Right.
say in Texas. But that's just my humble opinion. So,
And there's
uh,
there's a lot of ways. I mean, I think what you've done is hone in on, I think, some of the 5 or so best ones. But I mean,
I
when
was
we've
thinking the
looked at
ones
this,
we've seen the most commonly in our
exactly,
course of work. Like these are the
yes,
ones, and so
yep,
and they're not stupid or anything. I mean, they make sense. Like everything in marketing, the real answer is it depends. But so generally this is the deal, and so let's just jump right in. I call them the 5 fancy guesses. 1, competitive budgeting. Bill, tell me about that.
competitive budgeting.
Is that, yeah, competitive
Yeah.
budgeting, number 1.
So this
Oh,
one
here we got a
I'm
nice
not a
graphic.
fan of, but it is one that's being used all the time. So the competitive budgeting is where you take a look at your competition and you, whether it's through a trade group or actually knowing them or doing whatever and trying to copy them, and it's like, let's do what our competition is doing. And you and I can talk about this, but I just think there's so many things that are wrong with that.
Well,
But that's
that's
a
part
huge
of a,
approach.
isn't that part of a larger phenomenon where, it's kind of the old, they have the competitors' brochures and they spread them out on the table, and
Yeah.
they what they want to do is look just like the competitors, when actually what they should be trying to do is look exactly the opposite of the competitors, but it gets entrenched in their heads. And we worked for a big cemetery company, believe it or not, and I think they had fallen into that too, where just everything was lawn.
Yeah.
Everything in the
Yeah.
whole industry, everything was green and lawn. Surely you can do better than that. But and then that applies
You
to the
know,
budget. So what they try to figure out, well, what do we think how can they even figure out what their competitors are spending if it's a private company?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of
They're
what
guessing.
I call support groups out there, or groups that are industry trade groups that technically some people would say they're illegal, but I know of many of my clients that are members of them, and they'll meet with a group, but it might be like somebody like you and I. Maybe it's somebody from Milwaukee, but somebody from Austin. Maybe it's
Right.
somebody from Denver, and they get together and they kind of talk about it. So there's a lot of people that do it that way, but again, there's just so much wrong with that because we're all different. You know what I mean? You can get a rule of thumb, but we're different. Our markets are different. Yeah. Oh, that's just yeah. there we go. Oh no. With the same as before, Pete, we've talked about this a lot of times. A lot of people might just look at their same budget. What did we do last year? And then they, like you said, they might increase it 2% or whatever the case might be. And so that's a tough one. But really, from my perspective, one of the reasons why that is not a good one is because it doesn't take into consideration any emerging trends, emerging competition, things that have to be different. So in my opinion, it hinders your growth and innovation. So I think that that's a real scary one when people are doing that. But I think a lot of people do that just because they're naive or they don't want to take the time to figure out,
Sure.
how to put that all together. Because budgeting is a lot of work. There's no doubt about it. And sometimes just doing the same as last year and adding 2% makes it, so much easier for people.
All right. So, I think it's more work than people think by a long shot. And if you're in a corporate environment, there's a good chance that people just don't want to take the time to really know the numbers. And in this case, well, this one I would say is, same as before would be the shortest cut one. Hey, this is what we always spend. I mean, that's just nuts because especially with post-COVID, nothing is the same as it was before, and your budget shouldn't be either. And maybe it should be less. I don't know. It depends on your business. It depends. That's the answer. It depends. Percentage of sales. I could talk about this one for a minute.
I think you should.
Assuming people can hear me at all. We'll find out
I
later.
can hear you. It's
we'll find
wonderful
out.
Voice. You're doing
That's
great.
wonderful. Sounds good. This relates back to when you were commenting on the industry roundtables, and we've been in those as a company as well. And you share your financials, and they also do studies, and they might come out and say, and I even looked up in Forbes says this, and McKinsey says that, and it's usually something 9 for B2B companies, 9 to 12% maybe they put out. It seems to be what most of the places are putting out. Again, it's an aggregation of businesses completely not like yours. And so it's just a form of sort of fancy guessing. Should it be 7? Should it be 8? Should it be 9? Should it be 10? Should it be 12? Do we even know? Do we even know our numbers, percentage of sales?
Right.
I don't know. That seems like a pretty loosey-goosey type of fancy guessing right there.
Can I give you one of the things that I think is really wrong with that approach too?
Please.
Well, I actually have two things. One would be
Tear it up.
what happens if I have a bad year? So now
Right.
my budget goes down when I probably really need to beef it up. So it's like it's
Right.
a little bit of an insane approach,
We're cutting across the board.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I guess really bugs me, and I think you can speak to this probably better than anybody in the country, and that is, this is a short-term approach, which in my mind is totally ridiculous because isn't marketing and shouldn't the growth of your business be a long-term strategy? And yet this just refines even more and highlights, we're doing short-term because it's a percentage of our sales for this year. So that's where we're going to be. And I don't know, I have a real problem with that one.
So that seems like maybe not the best way in the professor's opinion. So I agree. I think that's just the sloppy way, honestly. This one, what you can afford at the moment, or what we've called sort of like cash flow budgeting. I think that's what you mean by that. It's sort of like, I think out of that grows the idea that we're going to pay for marketing out of the proceeds of marketing, right? There's a snake eating its own tail there. But is that what you mean by that?
Are you talking about for the percentage of sales?
Yeah, what can you afford at the moment is number 4.
Well, there's two that I think we're talking about here. One would be the percentage of sales budgeting, which we just talked about, where we look at our sales and all that kind of good stuff. And so there's where, like I said, I think that focuses too much on the short term. The all you can afford kind of thing, or what you can afford.
What can we afford?
Yep, what we can afford. I understand that one more than anybody, and you do too, because we own our own businesses and we've done it. So sometimes we call it the law of the situation. We are where we are, and this is what we can afford, and we're going to do what we can with it. So I understand that, but again, there's some other things that could go wrong with that too. we're going to get to the objective one, which I think makes the most sense, but it's like, what happens if you really need to do something that is so important and it's all you can afford, you can't do it. It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay,
It
you're
just,
starting to,
then you have to, if you start looking at it like it's not just cash, it's like sort of cash based, cash flow based budgeting. It isn't just cash that you need. It's just, if you look at it more like it's resources, and resources could be labor, time, or cash, right? So that's going to be a fairly finite amount that you need to have to bring to market. And so most people, if you're just looking at cash, you're really never going to get a return on your investment, because the only thing I can say is it just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I wish it did.
Let me give another comment though that I think this is more of a lesson for those marketers and PR people out there, and I hope they make you smile on this. So many times when we go out and we try to work with a client and they go, "Oh, I don't know my budget. You tell us what this is going to cost." I could go on and do some other.
What's it going to cost? Which I don't know. I think that's a fair question. What's it going to cost?
But the other thing too, though, is if you have a client that says to you, "Pete, I only have," and then you fill in the amount. This is all I can afford, or this is all I have. Right. If it's reasonable, you're gonna do what you can to still do a great job for them. But if you have to play some kind of guessing game and then get to that point, you're going to be exhausted by the time you even think about starting marketing. And so it's going to be, I think it just starts off on a negative.
This is a little off track, but it's so juicy. You're right. It's like, is that number, let's say that, and most clients share some ballpark numbers with us, so we kind of get a sense of, we're going to go back and figure out the best we can do with that. And here's why. In the history of my career doing this for 3 decades, no client has come up with a budget that made me start shooting guns in the air and drinking tequila and heading for Mexico. It's always a budget where we're like, gosh, how are we going to make that work? And that's just the reality of it. So, if there's no trust, then we usually say with people, look, it's, we'll estimate a flat fee, and we'll tell you right up front what it costs to work with us. But some companies have tons and tons of variables. Sometimes our stuff does too. And so it's just, there's too many variables here in method number 4. So let's go to number 5, zero-based budgeting. I have my idea of what that is, but I'm just a country boy, I'm just a country. Hey, I want to mention also, if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes or Amazon or Pandora or iHeartRadio, there's a nifty website where you can see how good looking the hosts are at b2bmarketingmindset.com. Video there. If you're watching this live on video on YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn, you're probably scratching your head, why are they talking about this? But it is for our audio-only listeners. And if you stay with us to the end, we're going to show you the right way. So zero-based budgeting, another clunker. What do you got?
Well, in a way, this is similar to the next one that we're going to do, but not quite. So I'll kind of leave people in suspense about that. But typically what this does is we have a pool of money that we're going to work with. And so what we do is we rank or prioritize the tactics or the things that we're trying to accomplish. And we try to get them prioritized. But when we run out of money, all of these other things that probably need to be done, they're dropped off. And so it's like, so some of the things that are probably really important get dropped off at the end. And I'm not sure that's
I think it relates to your previous point where, marketing is almost always front loaded in terms of the cost of it. And then we're talking about companies who maybe are really trying to go to the next level. You gonna have to put out extra resources, or maybe you're starting marketing, right? Maybe you just have relied on the phone ringing. What's the best way to make $1 million in business? Start with $2 million and wait for the phone to ring. That's always ding, ding. I just changed the joke forever.
Play the lottery.
Just spin that wheel. But I think zero-based budgeting ignores some of the realities of going to market, its complexity, what things cost, and it inevitably is going to run out, and you're not going to get a return on investment, because that's what this is all about. What's the least amount of money that we can invest so that we don't lose it and we get a return on the investment, and that we're not overspending. We don't have our agency or whoever, our employees, going to Mexico drinking tequila, shooting guns in the air. And people don't shoot guns in the air. I just wanted to put that out there.
I'm going to give a little bit of a trigger warning.
Safety first. Trigger warning.
I'm going to give a trigger warning here. With the zero-based budgeting, the trigger warning is marketing, PR, advertising people, they're not going to appreciate this because who's running the budget? It's the finance people, or you know what I mean? Or it's
Right.
somebody else that's really running that type of budget. And so, I nothing against
Yeah.
finance people,
No.
but it's I don't know,
It's
it doesn't hit the investment like you talked about.
Well, most things in business can be are linear in the way that they work, right? Marketing budgets and allocations and how that money is applied and spent is not a straight line on a chart. It's like a machine. Let's compare it to a machine. You buy a machine and it makes 1,000 widgets more an hour than the machine you had before. And so you know how many widgets you sell, and you can do the math, and there's this nice, even, steady curve. Marketing doesn't work like that. I hate to keep saying that, but it's, I think this is one reason companies struggle with marketing. It's one reason we have jobs, is because it's just a complicated deal these days. There's a lot to it. And so that zero-based budgeting doesn't take that into account. So
I was just going to say it was interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
well, I'm giving away the juice here. I got the last one up on the screen, which I think is the right one. And we had different, you and I had different terminology, but we agree that it's kind of the same thing. So break-even budgeting, or what we like to call cost of acquisition budgeting, which is really boring now that you say it.
Sorry.
Cost of our name is boring. And I keep looking over here, folks, because that's where all the controls are. And I see Bill over there. He's sitting over there for me. So,
Okay.
but
Are you gonna, since this one is such a hot one, do you want to address this one, or do you want me to take it and then you can like fix up all the damage that I do to it?
No, I'm curious to hear how you do it. I can tell you the way that we do it is we figure out cost of acquisition, lifetime value. We do our math. We kind of make decisions based. Sometimes we'll use some of that industry research, and we'll dial that in with the client's gut and the historical, and maybe combine a few of those other things. But mostly it's based on how much we're willing to invest on a per deal basis to win that deal, whatever that amount of money is. And then once that sets and you know how many deals you need, right? So you do the multiplication. And there's another video that I did that shows you in more depth and how we use our modeling process and on how to do this and how to find your cost of acquisition and lifetime value and know all your percentages and all that crap. It's in all that boring crap. It's in that other video. We'll put the link down in the comments. But then what we do is work backwards from researching what do things actually cost, the things that are on our marketing plan list, tactical. What does it cost to revamp the website, or you name it, right? There's a million things in marketing. We're doing 5 more trade shows this year. What do they actually cost? And then work backwards, come to the middle. And I think that's why is that why you call it break-even marketing? Well, break-even budgeting.
I think you're exactly right. So, for example, let's say let's say that we're going to spend $280,000 on a trade show, or for all of the trade shows. I'm just throwing out a number,
right?
And then let's say
one trade show can cost that much money. Yes,
of course.
easily.
But I'm just throwing out. Forget about trade show. Whatever it is, 280,000, and out of that,
nice
let's
round
say
number.
that we get the average might be 35,000. That we might get in revenue from that, or whatever. That means you divide that, you get 8 new customers. That's the break even. So if that trade show is gonna generate that much and we get 8 new customers out of it, that's pretty good. But what happens if we got 10 or 12? Now it's a little different story. So
right. Or what if we got 2?
Exactly. Then we're in trouble. You're right.
Maybe your strategy. Maybe maybe you didn't really take advantage of all the opportunities that a major trade show offers to market to the people and to touch the people. Maybe you didn't. Maybe your message was wrong and people walked past your booth down on aisle L7872, right? And that booth cost 10 grand, by the way. And so maybe all these things. But if you're doing this, if you know where you're going to break even, and this becomes all about predictability, so that you can, if you budget in the way that we recommend, you'll be able to predict when you're going to get a return on investment, about how much of that is. And it's uncanny how accurate it is. It's freaky sometimes. And maybe it's because we've just done it over and over again for so many kinds of companies. Let me toot our own horn there for a minute, but that is why. I mean, it's just, seeing how different industries and different types of companies, different sizes of companies work. This type of budgeting works for the smallest of the small and the biggest of the big, because it's a cold, non-emotional, numbers-driven way, and your finance guy will love this. I'll throw that in.
And like you said, which I think is a really key element to this approach, and that is you really do need to factor in what's the cost of, or what's the value of that new customer or client or whatever over the lifetime. How much are they going to be spending with you, or what are they going to do? Because that's really, that's important,
And so lifetime value, and that's not a linear curve either, because think about this. Let's say that your trade show example, those 8 customers, of those 8 customers, 1 or 2 of them refer 2 more customers because they had such a great experience, but your normal lifetime value calculation is not going to include that. So, you could put in your model whatever you want. I think what I want to communicate out of today's audience is, and what I think is really useful is, there's some fairly simple math that you can do to get a rough budget and then dial it into what you feel is a safe level of risk for you. Maybe you're somebody who can tolerate a lot of risk, right? You might put more funding in. Maybe you don't want to take hardly any risk. You might do more planning. You might invest more on the front end, right? However your own equation is, plus what does your gut tell us? There's actually some other key considerations that you mentioned too. So cost benefit analysis, for example. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you have a model that you've shared online, or that you could share with our listeners that kind of helps them through this if they want,
I do. I actually made a video showing you exactly how we do it for clients, just opening the kimono and showing you the tools and putting the numbers in, and we'll put a link to that video. It's a different episode of the program, and we'll put a link to that episode in the comments. But cost benefit, I think that's a really, that seems to be an obvious one. You had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like a derivative of that break-even one, and the one that you were talking about, some people will refer to that as objective-based budgeting. You know what I mean? In a way, it's very similar to this break-even, but what it's really, the end result there is, it's the same as the break-even. We need to know the value. We need to know how much our costs are. We do the dividing so that we know what a new customer is going to cost us, etc. But with the objective base, they almost take the attitude, even if you only bring in 2 customers versus 8, it's still good because we needed to do that objective,
Right.
So
it's designed for the objective, which some of the other things that we talked about, for example, what we can afford, that is not objective focused. What is an industry percentage that companies like us typically spend according to whomever, Gartner? That is not the same thing. Okay, so what is your objective? So you're going to spend, so that's a consideration, like, are you trying to go from 10 million to 20 million? Do you have giant competitors up against you? Okay, that's going to impact your budgeting. What are your objectives, right? And so, I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear Shadow barking?
Is that Commander? Is that Commander?
Yeah,
you got Biden's dog coming after us?
I do. He's coming up here. He's all fired up.
Okay.
But we got through this topic fairly quickly, and see, we're all fired up, and it's not boring, is it? It's like this is so crucial. What stage of the business, the life cycle of the business, where are you in that, or what's the life cycle of your industry? Like all these things you have to take into account. Now this sounds exhausting, but that's where people like us come in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely.
Our gut is really good because we've seen the same problems and with similar customers in different industries, and we see the similarities, and our experience can help sort out that complexity and just eliminate the wrong answers right out of the gate and not even ask those questions because we kind of know where you should be and what that looks like. But when it comes to budgeting, whoever's making the budgeting decision, some of it's going to be your gut. Right? It's not all just Mr. Spock and mathematics. There's a bit of Kirk in there. And that I think speaks to how risk adverse are you, right? And so,
you mentioned though the stages of the life cycle, and like whether you said, whether it's the industry, the organization, their product or their service that
Yeah.
they're at, you are absolutely, that is so important when it comes to budgeting, because you know this more than anybody. It's like sometimes people, when we get to them sometimes, or they get to us, I don't want to say it's almost too late, but it's like, what were you thinking? You were doing so well before, and now you're already either in the mature stage or the decline. It might take a lot more for them to get back up or get, innovate some new products or whatever, but it's like they've waited. They enjoyed the glory years and they've done nothing, so it's like,
Yeah.
that needs to be factored in as well.
Well, we do this every week, and that sounds like a great topic for next week, maybe, as we talk about life cycles and what is the life cycle of your industry. Are you in a very mature industry? Are you in a declining? Are you Kodak and
Right.
film is on the way out? Or are you?
Who's Kodak?
I don't know. I think it's a bear of some kind.
Okay. Ooh,
I'm not
ooh,
sure.
From Alaska.
Well, I know they're not Fuji. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
I think life cycle is a crucial thing, and it also literally changes the tactics that you might choose. So if you're in a growth stage or an early adopter stage,
Exactly.
what you do, because that's always a big question. Should we do SEO or should we do PPC? Like, those are the only two things, right? SEO or PPC? Well, what is your objective, and does it make sense for your customer, and where are you in the life cycle in your industry? Are you selling to 14-year-olds? Then probably TikTok.
Right.
Although TikTok has grown up, I have to say their demographics have changed a lot. There's a lot of older people on TikTok. Boomers are on TikTok, Bill.
Yeah.
The boomers are on there.
I know. Can I mention one more thing before we wrap this up?
You betcha.
One of the things that no matter what type of budget you decide to go to, one of the things that I think is absolutely critical is for you to either have an extra 10 to 12% that you hold back or that you keep in reserve, because stuff is always going to come up. You need a contingency plan. And sometimes
Have a
you might even
contingency.
yeah, it might be that we've all of a sudden got a better deal with maybe the radio station if we're going to do radio ads or whatever. Or it might be a crisis situation that emerges that we need to do something. But so many times I just see organizations don't consider the contingency plan, and then they go, no, we're out of money, we can't do that. And it's like, you really needed to, and they don't. So
In our
really-
master marketing blueprint, we actually have a line item there where you have a percentage that you can pop in there, and it creates a contingency budget, because it's going to go wrong. If it can go wrong, it'll go wrong, and you want to have a little money there. But hey, man, see, I told you it was a great topic, and encourage you to check out the link and the sister video to this one, and join us next week at 11 o'clock Central Time on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Blitzen, on Donner,
iTunes, Spotify, yeah.
iTunes, everywhere fine podcasts are consumed. B2B Marketing Mindset. We want to help you grow your business. We want to share our knowledge, demystify this nasty thing called marketing. I think that's enough information for anyone that's lasted here to the end. This is where, you get some sort of Easter egg.
I think, isn't this where we stand up and give them a round of applause?
Yes, if you've made it to the end, if you've made it this far, we're just going to clap for you, and we will see you next time. B2B Marketing Mindset. Over and out. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Budgeting. Very exciting.
I changed my name on the top now. Instead of Bill Boring, it's going to be Bill Exciting.
Here. There's that music coming in.
You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. We want to help demystify marketing to reduce risk, drive more and better opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?